All right, folks. Hello.
Hey.
I just be honest. We had a little bit of a false start here. We started the podcast and didn't have our audio rolling, so we're trying again. But welcome to On This Hill, podcast from Church on the Hill. Matt is here. Matt, you were here with Bruce a week ago, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, last week we were here. We talked about kind of resiliency
Yep.
and how to overcome adversity and challenges in your life. And
Yeah.
that was a great podcast. But Bruce is out this week, and I'm happy to
Yeah.
be here with you.
Yeah, Bruce and Linda are out of town. They'll be back soon. And I was out of town for the first 2 weeks of Family Month. So we're in Family Month, but I've missed it. How's Family Month going?
Family Month's been great. We usually take the month of July to again focus just on families. One thing that's different this year is we're continuing to run Kid Nation, our kids program, which I think is overall best for everyone, but we're still focusing on family,
Yeah.
shortening the service down just a little bit, which allows us to do some fellowship time and some snacks and a barbecue at the end of the month with families involved, and just focus on the priority of that fellowship of families.
Yeah, I think we just want to recognize in one way that summer is such a family time because, parents work hard, kids are in school all the time. When kids are out of school, it's natural to church see a little bit of a dip in attendance.
Sure.
And that often is just because people are on vacation. So at any given Sunday, you're going to have several families out of town and in different places. And we never want to, make church less. We only want to make it more. But we want to in the family month, say, hey, let's talk about families. Let's hear from some of the pastors maybe we don't normally hear from on our team.
Yeah.
Children's pastors, youth pastors, ones that don't have a regular pulpit time on Sunday, but they do other times of the week. And I like that too. It's one of my favorite things to hear. Yeah. I was bummed. I know Mason spoke, I think, here last week. I really wanted to hear him.
Yeah, and out south, Adam, who's the principal of Cross Hill Christian School, got to share together. And so, just a great, we're right in the second book of Acts, chapter 2, and really talking about the family of God, but also how that applies to families, which I think is kind of the direction we want to look at here. Both of us, of course, have our own families, although our kids are a little bit older. How about yours?
2 girls, 22 and 23, but they'll be 23, 24 very soon. They both have September birthdays. And yours are?
Yeah, Madison is 27, just got married last August and lives here in Salem. And then Austin also lives here in Salem. He's 21 and he's going to be a senior at Western Oregon. So
it's a pretty good gap between kids. I mean, it's not crazy long, but it's a pretty long one.
Yeah, 5 or 6 years. That's probably a little bit unique, but which is great. They didn't fight quite as much as maybe like for my brother and I are only maybe like 15 months apart, and there's some pretty good intensity there. We were growing up.
Yeah, my sister and I were 19 months apart. She's older. She used to pound on me pretty good. Shout out to my sister. Love you. And then I felt like as soon as I got old enough to be stronger than her, suddenly she didn't want to wrestle anymore.
Yeah, weird how that
wrestling
happens.
time was over.
Yeah.
But my girls, they're only a year apart. They both have September birthdays, but we got them basically at the same time because one's adopted and one's biological. So it almost felt like having twins. And then we did foster care for 6 years or so. So we had a lot of babies through our house. We only took babies 2 and under was kind of our rule, because then it was just seemed like a better environment for our kids, our daughters who were high school or so at the time and college, to kind of help us be a part of that and participate in it. So we've had a lot of parenting experience, even though we only had 2 kids. And I know you've had quite a bit, because not only are you a father and a husband, but you were a principal for how many years?
Yeah, so I was in public education for over 30, and the last 15 was high school principal at Cascade High School, which is not quite parenting, but it's definitely lots of interesting relationships and conversation, and watch the level of maturity from freshman to senior go through. It was a great place to work and be a part of. So.
That explains those crow's feet, that forehead wrinkle that
Absolutely, I see. Yeah. And I'm hiding the rest. It takes its toll for sure.
Actually, you look younger than I do, and I'm younger than you, so
not by much. Though.
Good job on that. I was kind of thinking about the podcast. I was looking at our mission and our values, and because I was also thinking about Family Month and like, as a church, what's our responsibility to do family together, to care for families, to try to train moms and dads and train kids together. And one of the things we talk about in our in our mission is our vision, is Christ-like transformation. Like
Right.
our Church on the Hill, we want to see people transformed, and we know that happens through the Word of God, through discipleship, through fellowship. And I was just thinking, like, how do you do that with kids? What does Christ-like transformation mean if you're a parent? How do you bring that to bear on little ones? At what age does that start? And is there a better time than others? And what are the tools that you use? What's in your tool belt to bring Christ-like transformation to kids?
Yeah. Well, I think it starts early. I mean, I think honestly it starts even before they're born, right? If you know you're going to be a dad or a mom, I mean, the first thing that I do is realize I can't do this on my own.
Yeah.
So there's this, like, let's get together and really seek God for wisdom and blessing as we take on a big responsibility, which is raising up children in a culture that's isn't in line with Scripture for the most part. So I do think it starts young, and for us that was very similar. Even early, kids were in church, and we talked openly about why we do the things we do. Not just like, don't do that, it's bad, but why? What is right and wrong? What does sin look like? Why do we spend our time this way? Why do we spend our resources this way? So I feel like they got the message pretty early. Again, we did it imperfectly, like every parent does, but definitely intentional about presenting the gospel as much as a kid can understand as early as possible.
Yeah. Kids have, in my opinion, the most sensitive hypocrisy like radar. They're very sensitive to it. They know, they call it out right away. They see it right away. So there's that pressure. Like, I'm the pastor of my kids and have been for all of their life.
Right.
I guess I've always been their pastor.
Well,
and you were the principal.
yeah, their principal for sure. Their coach, their principal. Yeah.
Yeah. So you were there, like just like I was in both of their worlds, in their home world and in their school or church world. And of course, later on, my kids came to Crossville Christian School, so I was there at their school as well. And I think that put a real pressure on me in a good way. I'm really glad it was there to not just say something from the front or present myself to be someone from the front that I couldn't actually be at home as well. Like say, I was imperfect at that, but just to try my very best to always be transparent and say when I failed so that they wouldn't reject the gospel because, well, Dad says this, but he does this. So.
Yeah. I think obviously stronger than our words is our actions, our follow through, the way we're modeling it.
Yeah.
And of course, again, I even think it's good for kids to see us make mistakes, as long as there's the right response to the mistake, which is learning from it, repenting from it, and being humble about it.
Yeah.
So whether we're living it out imperfectly or not, the fact that they get to see someone bring the gospel to life in their home at a young age through now. And it's different, right? Yeah. Right now, we still hopefully have influence on our kids who are in their 20s, maybe a little bit different influence. It's more of a coaching advisor role, but still, hopefully, we're modeling that transformation that they can replicate.
Yeah, it seems like that is one of the good signs. Like, what are the signs that you're tried that is or succeeded in that is your kids are coming to you for advice as adults. If they are asking you questions, like, okay, great, you still care for my opinion. That's one. Like, I'm so proud. I don't want to fumble that or be proud about that, but I'm glad that you're seeking me out for advice on this and not just me telling you what you ought to do. Although, as a dad, sure, I do some of that. Like,
sure.
Hey, let me tell you what you ought to do in this situation.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, the other piece is we value trying to see our city transform, trying to see, so there's the personal transformation, but then there's having an impact on our neighborhoods, on our city. And that's one of those places where I think with our kids, I know pastors can get this reputation and maybe it's very fairly earned that they might put ministry before their kids. And I've always struggled with that because we're supposed to pick up our cross and follow Jesus. We're supposed to lay down our life.
Yeah, as a drink offering, Paul.
Exactly. So I want to do that, but also God isn't into child sacrifice. You don't sacrifice your kids on the altar of ministry.
Right.
So there's that balance of teaching my kids that dad lays down his life and you should lay down your life. And I think a lot of it maybe has to do just with attitude. If I do it with a spirit of gratefulness, if I do it with like, I can't believe I get to do this, or look at the grace that God has given us to do this thing that he's called us to do, then it seems to work. But I've seen it not work.
Yeah.
And
I think there's a couple things there. One is, do they see that it's genuine, right? Like if you're like, oh, we've got to do this is my job, and then behind the scenes, there's that hypocrisy. But if they see like, I genuinely, even if it's hard some days, I genuinely like what I'm doing. I'm partnering with God. It's exciting. Yes, it's hard at times, but I do love it. I do feel called to it. So I think that's a piece that helps quite a bit. And then what you mentioned just earlier, it's not just internal focus. Sometimes in ministry, it could be all about, the workings of the church or the church or whatever, even at the high school, the business of being a principal.
Yeah.
But as you turn your heart outward as a family, how can we transform lives at the school, or how can we transform lives at the church? How can we minister out in the community? How can we minister to those who are struggling? How can we take our family on short-term mission trip like we're getting ready to do with Church on the Hill, 45 people, mostly families. So if they see that outward look too, I think that provides a good balance.
Yeah. I would say I didn't go in thinking this when it came to foster care, because it was my wife and my kids that were first like, we should do foster care, we should do foster care. And I was like, you guys are crazy. I don't have any more to give. Like my home time is my home time. Please don't take that away from me.
Right.
That was my attitude. And sometimes it was just straight up my words. And when God kind of blamed me about it, he said, I remember very clearly him saying, basically, you're being a hypocrite. You say you want a more tender heart, you want to know me more, but you don't want to do the things that do that. I was like, oh, that's, when it's the voice of God because it's so true. And I was like, yeah, that's 100% you, God. This isn't me because I don't want to hear that. And then when we said yes to it and started doing it, it was obviously, it should be a benefit to the kids that are fostered, but it was such a benefit to my family that my kids had to participate in this laying down your life right there in the home. It wasn't just, sometimes we do this special event where we go and we feed the homeless,
right,
or we clean up a street, or we, witness on a street corner. Those are, and I'm not mocking those things. Those are wonderful things to do, but it brought it right into the home so that there just wasn't a moment when you weren't supposed to be laying your life down. It was just all the time.
That's a real challenge.
Yeah, it was. It was a real challenge, but it was also like the best thing we ever did. The most fruitful thing I think I've ever done in my life, other than raise my own kids, is participate in caring for other people's kids and seeing my daughters get that heart, so that they became champions of this thing and care about it. And
I think those are those milestone moments, right? I think that if you can look back over your life as a parent, whether your kids were really young or up through adulthood, there are opportunities where they're watching, where you make big decisions. Like that is a big decision that's going to impact your whole family. And so if in those big decisions they see you choosing the path that God wants, the one that looks like the gospel, that may cost the family a little bit, but you make that choice in a way that's with a gracious heart, man, that has such an impact. Which kind of brings me to the other side, because a lot of the families that I talk to also struggle with the culture that pulls you the other way, right? Which is like, hey, we've got 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, sports programs, or these things that are just kind of pulling. And not that other activities are not. My kids were involved in sports. I coached. That's a good thing. But talk about that a little bit. Like, how do you balance where it's like, okay, we have church, we have youth group, we have ministry opportunities, and we have school, we have homework, we have sports. Maybe it's music and drama, and these are also mostly good things, but they really compete for our attention. And if we let them, we'll swallow up all of our time. So how do you find that balance?
A couple of years ago, I heard we had the general director of the Assemblies of God come into our state, and he spoke to us as pastors. And he said he had a list of some of the coming challenges, and on that list was club sports. And he wasn't, he was the same as you. He was like, my kids played sports. I'm not anti-sports. We don't want to go backwards to this time that, if you play sports, you don't care about Jesus or something like that.
Right.
But he said it's just a reality that it's taking our families out of church.
Mm-hmm.
And it's taking them out of church at a time when it's critical that their kids see them,
Right.
walk in the rhythms of community. And I think he's right. I don't think he's wrong. And so you've got to just make those choices. Now, Crosshill Christian School uses sports as a discipleship opportunity.
Absolutely.
So you can get a godly coach that can take your kid farther than any, I'm not trying to just be divisive here, but any youth group pastor or any mentor, because he's got this lever of, we're going to do something together. And to me, that's where discipleship really happens, is when you're on a project together. Mm-hmm. That project could be winning a state championship. It could be building a house. It could be education. There's lots of projects. But when you're on a project together, I think is the best, most fruitful time of discipleship. So we're not anti, but there has to be a reality that you face that say, hey, this good thing is not the best thing.
Right.
And it's taking away from something that I care the most about for my kid. So do I want them to be healthy and happy? Absolutely, I want them to be healthy and happy. But do I want them to have a real, vibrant connection with Jesus? Yes, more than I care about those other things.
Right.
And so, just prioritize when you have to and say, we will do this, we won't do that. It can't be a yes to everything.
Sure.
And I think pay attention to the reality that it has its benefit. What did Paul say? Bodily exercise profiteth little. Is that how he said it?
Yeah.
It depends on the.
Yeah,
and I'm saying
gist.
it in kind of old King James too. Bodily exercise profiteth. That's what I learned it in. But pay attention. It does profit. It profits. It does.
Sure.
It profits something.
There's some benefit.
There's some benefit to it. Yeah, and use that benefit. Just don't let any of those things. It could be artistic endeavors. My daughter was in theater.
Mm-hmm.
And hey, theater is great, but it has to take second seat to Jesus. And how are you using theater to glorify God? Can you do this on the basketball court or on the soccer field? Are you glorifying to God in the thing that you're pursuing? And is God in this pursuit, or does he have something else for you? Daniel De Silva has that amazing testimony. If you've never heard him share it, Daniel De Silva is our campus pastor at South, and he wanted more than anything in the world when he was young to be a professional soccer player.
Right.
It's what he wanted more than anything. And he even has this crazy miracle story where he knew he had to be a little bit bigger. Have you heard him share this?
Yeah.
Where he grew 2 inches.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was after this kind of prophet lady said something about him doing it. And it was like God gave him that, but then sort of asked him, now will you give it back to me? Because I actually have something better for you than that.
Right.
And it wasn't because he didn't want Daniel to have a good thing. It's because he wanted him to have a better thing.
Right.
So I think the answer to all of those is this choice a lordship choice? Am I, in doing this, obeying God's voice?
Right.
Or for me and my family, is a yes the wrong choice? Should I be saying a no? Because if we can't say no when God says no, then we're not really making ourselves subject to him or making him the Lord of our lives.
Yeah, I think it's about being intentional, right? Because we talk about this all the time. You're in a river. You're not paddling. You're not staying right there. You're going upstream or downstream.
It's taking you somewhere.
The culture has a stream, and that is away from the things of God, and to be so busy and so distracted that you don't have time for God.
Yeah.
Now, on the other hand, it's not like, well, we're just gonna, we're gonna go to church because that's what we're supposed to do, and it becomes this robotic thing.
Yeah.
What kids should see is the relationship with God and the fellowship with His believers, and spending time in that venue is valuable. Yeah. It's worth it. It's for our better good, and we can also do other things and be involved in other things, but we have to be intentional with our time. Time is short. The Bible talks about time all the time, right? Time all the time.
Yeah.
The Bible talks about time and how important it is to use it effectively. But you're right. You mentioned several instances where there's youth leaders or coaches could be used by God, and so there are situations where the people in your kid's life can feed into them. And that's another question. As your kids get older, your direct influences change, right? Like if my child is 5 years old, then I'm the only one they listen to, me and their mom.
Yeah.
And as they get older, like preteen, teen, the parental influence changes a bit.
Yeah.
And what we found is, and I want to ask you this, trying to surround my kids with other people that I trust that can pour into their lives. Maybe that is a coach and a youth group leader, but what about that? What about surrounding your kid with other adults that have the same values that you have?
Yeah. For my two daughters, it was different people. And we were trying to be intentional to find them, but it wasn't that we found them and put them there. They just kind of providentially, I think, showed up. So with Grace, it was coaches. I think she had the biggest impact in her life during middle school, high school was from coaches in volleyball. And they were godly coaches who, used sports to disciple her. For Faith, I'd say it was more teachers. And again, we had the privilege of being in a Christian school. That's fantastic. You can find Christian teachers in public school. Obviously, you were one of them. But we just had that blessing of having both of those there. Now, obviously, I don't know, I hesitate to even bring this up, but the reality is with my kids, me being the pastor and them being at our building just all the time, is my kids weren't youth group kids. They didn't go to middle school and high school youth group. And I recommend to parents that you take your kids there.
Yes.
But my kids were there, 5 days a week for school. They were there after hours for extracurricular activities, and they were there, multiple times.
Because you were there too.
On a Sunday, because I was there teaching.
All 3 services maybe.
And they went to youth group once in a while, and both of them just kind of were like, Dad, is it okay if we don't go to youth group? And my check was always like, are they loving Jesus? Are they being fed?
Absolutely.
Are they growing? And they were. So I think it's okay to just find that place that your kid is being influenced and plug them in there.
Absolutely.
And for most kids, that would be like a youth group, a middle school or a high school or a young adult group. But for mine, it was something else because they had so much of the other influence that they kind of almost needed to step back where they weren't in that same place all the time. And it kind of gave them, too, just a little sense of independence.
Right.
Like we're getting this from something else.
Yeah. And that's what I was saying. You don't just create a system or a checklist for your kids to do quote unquote spiritual things. You're praying for them, you're watching them, you're talking with your wife, and you're saying, what makes the most sense to feed our kids spiritually?
Yeah.
And this is Jennifer, my wife and I, Jennifer, do a lot of marriage and family counseling. And so I want to ask you a kind of a related question. A lot of times around that age, maybe high school, there are families that are coming to us that saying their kids are maybe pushing back a little bit.
Right.
Like not rejecting the faith wholeheartedly, but like, is this as important as it should be? I want to be independent. Is my faith my own?
Yeah.
Maybe I want to, distance myself because this is my parents' thing a little bit. And there's this period of time, maybe it's teenage, maybe it's a little bit older, where kids are struggling to navigate their faith versus their parents' faith. How have you guys either personally navigated that or in couples that you've worked with?
Yeah. Well, I'd say, first of all, I did it as a high schooler. Did you?
Yeah. Yeah, of course. There were times where I'm like, what do I believe? Why do I believe it? What's my priority?
Yeah.
And tough choices to be made.
Yeah, for me, because I was a bit of a nerd, I'd say, and also, like, it's not that I got great grades or anything, but that was kind of a side issue. I was a bit of an intellectual. I loved to learn. I loved to study. And biology too kicked my rear end. And it just made me doubt everything.
Oh, wow.
And I just really, I remember like just going through this struggle, like, I don't know if I believe any of this anymore.
Yeah,
because if this isn't true of evolution versus creation, then what is true? And I didn't get an intellectual answer to it. I got a church answer. I showed up at church and the Holy Spirit showed up and touched me. And I'm like, well, this is real.
Yeah.
I'm being touched by the Holy Spirit. This is real.
Yeah.
And I remember even in the moment battling, like putting my hands up and putting them back down again. Like putting them up because I knew like I'm feeling something, but putting them down like, no, that's not real. Like, well, if it's not real, then why am I feeling this? Because it's not just emotions.
Sure, absolutely.
You know when it's happening. This is not just emotions.
Right.
And so when my kids, hit that place, they weren't, I would say, I don't remember either one of them just having a doubt intellectual issue. But, they had their moments of closeness to God and then their moments of distance to God. I saw it like, okay, what do I do? Because you panic, because you want it more for your kids more than anything in the whole world. And I think both Trish and I just realized, like, we certainly have a responsibility to parent and to speak to it and to say yeses and nos to things that they might want to do, but that our biggest role was going to be as intercessors, that we were going to pray desperately for our kids, like it mattered the most, because it did. And so we would just get on our knees. And I mean, there were times that we were just burdened for our daughters. And it might have not even seemed like the biggest deal, because I think, like your kids, they weren't like joining a gang or even like smoking behind the schoolyard. Or, you know, it was just, you could just feel their closeness or their distance from God and their desire to pursue him, or they no longer felt a strong desire to pursue him. And even though that might be natural, the devil is just the worst. And he wants to take advantage of their, you know, just their dullness at times.
Find a chink in their armor, right?
So we fought the devil. I will say it like a Pentecostal. We fought the devil for our kids. And we're like, you're not going to have them. Period. Now, we don't get to make choices for our kids. Our kids have to make their own choices. I mean, you do get to make some choices for your kids, but eventually,
ultimately,
the choices are going to be theirs. And so we try to also navigate that. Like, is this a them choice or is this an us choice? And ultimately, will we lead them to making the right choices for themselves when they get the chance? Because if you make all the choices for your kids, if that's just the way you live your life until they're 18 or try to even do it as they're older, when they do finally wrest control of their life from you, they won't make the same choices you make. They won't do it. So you got to kind of feed them opportunities to make the right choice and then reward it when they make the right choice.
And give them opportunities to make mistakes.
Absolutely.
I wanted our kids to, you know, get out on a limb a little bit and make small mistakes, because very much would rather have them make a small mistake while you're at home so you can talk them through and guide them through it than like you said, create a situation where they can't barely breathe and don't make any mistakes and they're out on their own making bigger ones. So how do you learn from your mistakes? Create an environment where they have to make some independent choices. I want to just reiterate and highlight for everybody what you said about intercession. I just, you know, we always want to look for some other fix or a book or some counseling, which all those things are great. We do a lot of that at Church on the Hill. We've started a counseling program. We believe in it. But I also know for things that are valuable, like your relationship, husband and wife, and for your kids, prayer and intercession and standing in the gap for them, I've seen time and time again, is really the thing that most of the time turns the tide.
Yeah, and I would say too, we were unafraid to let our kids hear us praying for them, to let them know that we're fighting for you right now. We know what side we're on, and we see a little bit of dullness or something spiritually in you, and we're fighting for you. We want this for you so bad. And I think it produces a tender heart in them. I hope Grace is okay with me saying this. I don't know if she will be or not. I'll ask her. I'll ask her. Faith and Grace, my daughters, are so different. I would say outwardly it would appear that Faith just always had this tender heart, and like worship and those times were just there for her. And Grace was more like, this is a job and you do it. Like my Christianity is a job and I'm doing it. Like she was one of the most faithful Bible studiers and journalers and book readers of anyone I've ever seen. But I always hope, like, man, I hope that tenderness is there. I hope that heart is there. But she was just a little bit more protective, and that came naturally from her environment, her background, and being adopted and stuff. That she was a little more protective of her heart and didn't let it, you know, get out there so much. And I've told this story before, but she told me for years, when I never asked her to be in ministry or told her that she should be a minister, she would say, "Dad, this is great for you, but I'm not going to be a minister." And I'd be like, "Okay, yeah, cool. I mean, I don't know that you have to be a minister," but I always thought it was weird that she would say that and say it so often, so that when she felt like she was supposed to go down to Ensenada and do a discipleship training school, it's not that meant she was embarking on a life of ministry, but it was such a relief to me because it was the thing she didn't want to do, and she was saying yes to it, and I'm like, okay, God's got you. You know, you see him as Lord because you will say yes to the thing that you would rather say no to. And I remember for both of them, you know, just praying and interceding and trying to find like, okay, God, what's that how have you created them, and how do I cooperate with getting them there?
Right.
Because I didn't create them. I mean, we had a biological part, but they're from him.
Right.
And how do I cooperate with the design that he has for them and help them see it too, and realize now how long of a process it is, because they're 22 and 23 and they're still figuring out. I'm 53 and I'm still figuring out how I'm designed and how to cooperate with God.
Yeah. And you said partner with God as you do that. And how does that look practically, like for big decisions? Like, obviously, when kids are in high school, maybe there's some like, should they be dating? And what does their future husband or wife look like? And then you mentioned career, whether it's ministry with a capital M, like I'm going to be in the church, or I'm going to be a missionary, or ministry with a small m, which is like no matter what I do, where I serve, whether it's in a high school or my kids are more aiming towards business, how do they continue to serve God and to live out their faith in kind of the work world? And how do you partner with them and God to coach and encourage, but not just completely direct?
Yeah, I don't know that we did it perfectly, and but one of the things that we did do was we used all the tools we could find. So even ones that weren't necessarily Christian tools, like 16 Personalities. You ever seen that? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of people have. And it kind of hit our kids' school like a wave. A bunch of kids were doing 16 Personalities. And it's the, what's the name of the, I can't remember the name of the thing. It gives you like these personality traits.
Myers-Briggs?
Yeah, that's it. And that's kind of been maybe even debunked or said, this is good.
But there's a lot of
not
different
good
inventories to get to the same idea.
We did that. I remember all sitting down on the couch together and doing it together, then talking about, and as we talked about it, I'm like, oh yeah, that is so you, or I don't really see that. Maybe that's not right. And then we did Strength Finders together.
Sure.
That's also a fun one. And we would just try to figure out, because kids are naturally interested, and everyone is asking them, what do you want to be when you grow up?
What are you going to do next year?
Yeah, so they feel this pressure, so they want to know as much as you want to know at a certain age. I mean, when they're real little, they want to be princess and fireman and, whatever. But when they started getting more real, we just started to do some of that together, and that was really helpful. But also, you're honestly getting discernment and words from God. I have journals that I go through, and I'm not the most faithful journaler, but when I feel like God has said something, whether it's in a quiet time or somewhere else, I keep a journal in my bag. It's here with me, and I'll write down what I feel like God was saying. And there's several things that God said to me about my girls that I would repeat to them.
It's good.
I remember one in particular about Grace, and I drew a little doodle with it. And it was real simple. It just said, Grace is going to be a giant slayer. And I thought, that's almost a lot of pressure.
Yeah, sure.
Tell a kid they're going to be a giant slayer. But from the time she was little, she loved to play David and Goliath with me. And so did Faith. But Grace was aggressive about it. Like she would, so much so that when we weren't playing, if she was mad at me, she would go like this and pretend to throw a rock at my forehead.
Pretend at least.
Yeah, well, yeah. She missed. And I drew a little thing with her, and you just see this giant's leg, and then her, at the foot, saying like, "You shall not pass" or something.
Yeah.
And I showed it to her, and we kind of laughed and joked about it. And years later, she said to me, because I said it when she was pretty young. She's like, "Dad, I don't know what you see there. Like I don't get it. Like whatever you're seeing, I don't see."
Wow.
But then a little while later, and I'm totally seeing it, because she dealt with fear and stuff, but now she's one of the bravest kids I know.
Yeah.
Faith has these gifts and talents in the arts,
right,
and in theater and in literature, and they're being tried right now. They're being tried because she's applying for jobs, and applying for jobs is demoralizing.
Because you get a tough market right now, especially.
Yeah, you get no's, and you want yeses, and you have dreams and hopes, and God has invested so much in her, and we've invested so much in her in those areas and encouraged it, that I just know whether it feels like anything now or not, it's coming. And so just trying to speak faith into that and say, you got this.
Well, that was what I was going to say, just from what just to summarize what you had just talked about, man, speak life over your kids.
Yeah.
I mean, there's plenty of times that they're going to hear,
Yeah.
no, it's not good enough. You did that wrong, or make mistakes.
Yeah.
But from the world, I mean, from their
Yeah,
teachers
totally.
or coaches or
Yeah.
wherever, friends.
Yeah.
It's tough. Middle school, it's gonna
Yeah,
they're
their
gonna get the
internal
rocks.
monologue will beat 'em up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So speak life.
Yeah.
First, affirmation, how much you care about them, how much you love them, but also life in terms of what you just talked about. What God, his plans, his purposes, his destiny
Yeah.
for your kids, because that is critical even now. Which makes me think, both our kids are in their 20s.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It always seems like life was a little easier for kids back then versus now. So as we wrap up, for parents of kids that are growing up right now, maybe they have, age 5 to 15, and that includes that middle school, and culture continues to be challenging. What would you say are some themes or some common struggles, and how to apply God's principles in them that are maybe unique to this time frame?
There's a few things jumped in my mind, and you can chime in too. You'll have as good as ideas as I do. But I think you should be unafraid of making peculiar kids. Make weirdos. Like, make them not...
That shouldn't be hard for you. Right?
Yeah, no, they come natural for me. Just act like dad. Don't worry about trying to get them to fit in. They're going to worry about it. And that's natural.
Yeah.
It's a desire to be liked and to fit in. But teach them to stand on their own.
Yeah.
Teach them to
Be unique.
To be unique, to be different. And that is a value that will stay with them. I think if we can worry less about them being liked or fitting in, the better. This is just practical, and maybe you'll say this is impractical. But as a general rule, I would just say give them a cell phone as late as absolutely possible. It's gonna, as soon as they have it, it's gonna be a ginormous influence on their life, and will rival you for an influence. So I would say just wait till the very last minute.
Sure.
Wait as long as you possibly can. That's just a little thing, but also teach them to stand on their own. That's what I try to do my very best with my kids. Teach them to lay down their lives every day. Going to school, I'd say, remember, you've been blessed so that you can be a blessing. Bless someone today. Be an encouragement to someone today. So teach them to lay down their life. Teach them to give their life away. And model loving Jesus, because if you love Jesus, they'll love Jesus. They tend to love what you love. We don't get to pass on our kids, everything to our kids. I have been unsuccessful in giving my kids my taste in music. They persist in liking bad music, and it's too bad.
It's a flaw.
It's too bad. They just don't love the Delta blues like I do. But
what's wrong with them?
Yeah, I don't know. There's a deficiency. But what I really want to pass on to them is I love Jesus, you love Jesus. So I think that maybe the last one I would say, there's a ton more, but don't just try to keep your kids safe. Certainly you don't want to see your kids be harmed.
Correct.
But I think if safety is the guiding factor in your life, then risk and faith is out the window. So don't just teach them to be safe, teach them to be dangerous. Teach them to be strong.
Right.
Teach them to be resilient.
Take appropriate risks.
Yeah.
Right?
I raised girls, I'm not like I'm talking about, jujitsu or, hand-to-hand combat. I'm talking about the spirit world. I'm talking about, being courageous culturally. Teach them to be dangerous to the enemy. So.
Well, you mentioned the cell phone thing, and of course that's a whole nother podcast probably. Yeah. But I would say just the amount of outside information that comes at kids that they have access to, whether it's cell phones or social media or the computer, internet, just news, whatever. How do you choke down to manageable, whether it's not having a cell phone, not that influence that just comes 24/7 that never stops. Of course, it's even hard for adults to manage. But that outside influence that's outside the church, it's outside the family, is just like a fire hose of information. And we, at least when they're younger, should be able to somehow temper that everything coming at them at the same time.
I so appreciate some of the families in our churches that do that well, do it better than I think we did it. I could name them, but there's just some families in our churches that I think, man, you've navigated those waters so well. And if I was young and raising kids all over again, I would find families that had kids a little older than me that were raising kids that were godly, and I would just ask them, what are you doing?
Right.
Because my information is going to be out of date. I mean, I'm trying to stay up to date. I'm trying my best, but also I'm not raising kids right now. I would find someone who is and has kids just a little bit older than you and sit down and say, how did you do this? What what are you doing at home? What does your evening look like? How do you do meals? Like just quiz them. That's what Tricia and I did. Yeah. We just looked for people that were doing it well, and we asked them questions. We read books too, and books are great, but we were looking for face-to-face examples and other families to put our kids around.
Well, that brings us full circle, really, because we started talking about Family Month.
Yeah.
And what a incredible opportunity if you're plugged in to a local body like Church on the Hill, where you can see families that are being successful and work together and pray together and cry together and rejoice together. Yeah. And so we do see a lot of families, whether it's at church when we have family events, but even more so in a small groups. We've prioritized life groups, and a lot of the life groups are oriented around families. And like anything in Christianity, doing it by yourself is impossible, and it's not the way it was designed. Yeah. And so doing family by yourself is impossible and not the way it was designed. And so what an opportunity to have a body around you that can give you wisdom and support.
I heard something the other day that I'd never... It wasn't like our guiding philosophy, but it summed it up so well when it came to Tricia and I and parenting. And it was a hard life now, easy life later. I'm like, yeah, that's what we were trying to do.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
we were trying to, even when they were little, even though it was harder to discipline them, it was harder to keep them under control, it was harder to train them, we were looking for an easier life down the road. And if you train them well when they're little, then great. And also, man, just what a consequence-rich time. I heard an astronaut say one time, he was talking about that first 30 seconds of liftoff. And he said, it is an extremely consequence-rich time. Yeah. He said, that's why we practice over and over and over. Every second counts. Every flip of a switch counts. Every movement counts. Anything you do can kill you, and you have to be careful. And I was just thinking, like, yeah, that's true of kids. Like, it's, all of it is, but I would say, like, 15 to 25, those 10 years, like they're making adult decisions without an adult brain yet. Like they're falling in love. We fell in love. You and I, not the two of us. We found our soulmates, our one, our, and we were kids and we were crazy, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It was the goodness of God that we found good ones.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because
especially
we were
that age.
We were stupid. We were so stupid.
Still are sometimes.
Stupid is not the right time. We were probably ignorant of life. Naive, yeah. But what if we'd picked the wrong one in high school? And thank God he gave us the right one. Yeah. So just what a time to pay attention to your kids and not ever zone out. Yeah. But help them go through that 30-second launch window, that launch window of our kids when they're leaving, they're preparing to leave and they're leaving. Man, pay so much attention to your kids in that moment. All right.
It's good.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for checking this out and spending time with us. If you think this might be helpful to someone else, go ahead and send it to them. Share it. We're not trying to build an empire here. We're not trying to get a bunch of views and likes or anything like that. We're just hopefully trying to build the kingdom as best we can. And if this is a way we can do it, we want to do it. And if sharing it is helpful, then share it. If there's something that we can bless you with, especially around that area of parenting, as we talked about today, we are not experts, but we love God and we want to partner with you to do the best that we can in raising godly kids. So reach out to us.
Yeah, please reach out. It's been great to be with you.
Yep. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Take care.